Madam Mayor, I can confirm we are now live streaming on YouTube.
Thank you very much, Mr. Town Clerk. Good afternoon and welcome to Tavistock Town Council. First of all, I'd ask the clerk, you've just confirmed that we're being live streamed on YouTube. I'm Councillor Anne Johnson, the Mayor of Tavistock Town Council. I will now ask members present to indicate by physical show of hands that they can hear proceedings. There's nobody joining by video link, so can you show of hands that you can hear? Thank you. I think that's everybody. Thank you. So we will now take a roll call of councillors present. Mrs. Smallcombe, can you take the roll call, please?
I have yourself as Mayor, Councillor Hutton as Deputy Mayor, Councillor Crawford, Councillor Ellis, no Councillor Ewings yet, Councillor Mrs. Mann, Councillor Mrs. Parker, Councillor Smith and Councillor Williamson, with Councillor Squire, Parker and B. Smith in attendance.
Thank you. Councillors and officers are asked to ensure that they have included their name against their thumbnail video so they can be clearly identified by viewers. May I take this opportunity to remind councillors that, subject to certain conditions, standing orders provide for speaking once on each item on the agenda. Members who wish to speak are asked to use the Zoom raise hand facility. And if that doesn't work, please just raise your hand physically. Thank you. May I remind councillors and the public that the documents for this meeting are available on the council website. Please note that members are also not facility in this meeting. In addition, may I remind you all to stay muted until called to speak and to remute once you have spoken. When I call you to, or when whoever's chosen as chairman calls you to speak, they will state your name. In the interest of transparency, try not to use the comments facility to communicate during the meeting other than with the chairman in the open forum. In no circumstances should be used for private discussions. Voting will either be by assent of the members or by roll call vote. For a roll call, members are asked to state either for, against or abstain when asked. If a councillor declares an interest, they will be temporarily removed from the meeting until the matter has been resolved and then readmitted. When the public part of the meeting concludes, there will be a brief adjournment of 10 minutes to enable councillors to log back in for the confidential part of proceedings. Okay. Has Councillor Mrs. Ewing joined us?
She has, and you also have an indication to speak from Councillor Mrs. Parker, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Mrs. Parker? Can you unmute, please, Councillor Mrs. Parker?
Can I ask that my name against my video is changed to Ginny Parker, because it must be very confusing for people to hear Ginny but see Virginia. Not everybody knows it's a shortened form.
Right, I think you have to do that yourself, don't you? You change your own.
I think the host can do it.
Ginny.
The host can do it.
It's done.
Just
May I speak?
just beat you
please?
to it.
Councillor Mrs. Ewing?
I'm really sorry, but I can't get in on my Wi-Fi. It's playing up a minute, so I'm on my phone.
Okay.
So I will just have to yell occasionally. I'm just going to try again now. I went into next week's meeting. I'm just going to try again in a minute. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So
Sorry, I don't know. I've lost everybody now. Let's just move that to one side.
I'm not sure if Councillor Mann is indicating, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Mrs. Mann? No, you didn't. Right, okay. Right, welcome to the meeting of the Budget and Policy Committee. Agenda item 1, Election of Chair, Policy Committee, 21 civic year. So can I have nominations, please? Oh, God. My internet connection is unstable, Town Clerk.
You have a councillor, Mrs. Parker, indicating she would wish to speak, Madam Mayor.
Right, thank you. Councillor Mrs. Parker.
I would like to nominate Andy Hutton, Councillor Andy Hutton, as Chair of Budget and Policy.
Right, thank you. Do we have a seconder for that, please?
Councillor Mrs. Crawford, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations?
None showing, Madam Mayor.
No other nominations? Councillor Williamson, did you wish to speak?
I would like to nominate Councillor Harry Smith, but I don't know if he would accept that or not.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that nomination, please?
Councillor Ellis, Madam Mayor.
My internet connection is really quite poor tonight. Councillor Ellis has seconded that. All right, Councillor Hutton, are you prepared to accept that nomination?
Yes, I am, Madam Mayor, yes.
Councillor Smith, are you prepared to accept that nomination?
I will accept the nomination, but wish to make a statement that I'm saddened by the actions that were taken on a private conversation I had with a member trying to be helpful. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm struggling to hear this. Sooner I don't chair it. Right, so we've got a nomination. So we've got two nominations which have both been, sorry, you wish to make a statement, Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I did try to make the statement, Madam Mayor. I don't know whether you can hear me at the moment and whether the others can. The situation is that I sent a private communication to a member who then, unfortunately, did not take it in the spirit in which it was intended. And I find that the events after that are unfortunate. I have decided to stand basically because I feel that in local democracy, there is a place for a vote to take place on position.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we now have to have a roll call of members to see who they're going to vote for. So the two candidates are either Councillor Hutton or Councillor Smith. So is Mr. Call or Town Clerk?
If Mrs. Smallacombe could please take the roll call vote, and if each councillor on the committee could indicate the name of the councillor that they wish to support for the appointment of chairman, please. Thank you.
Councillor Miss Crawford.
Councillor
I'm
Hutton.
sorry, you're going to need to be closer to the.
Sorry. Councillor Mrs. Crawford.
Councillor Hutton.
Councillor Ellis.
Councillor Smith.
Councillor Mrs. Ewings.
Councillor Hutton.
Councillor Hutton.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Councillor Hutton.
Yes, that's correct.
No, I was going, sorry, I was going to Councillor Hutton.
Oh, sorry,
sorry,
right,
you can vote for
yes,
yourself.
right, sorry. I'm voting for Councillor Hutton.
Councillor Mrs. Johnson.
Councillor Smith.
Councillor Mrs. Mann.
Councillor Hutton.
Councillor Mrs. Parker.
Councillor Hutton.
Councillor Harry Smith.
Can you say that again, please?
Councillor Harry Smith.
Councillor Smith.
Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. There are 5 votes in favour of Councillor Hutton and 4 votes in favour of Councillor Smith. So Councillor Hutton is duly elected.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to Councillor Hutton.
I didn't get the mayor properly then. Was she handing over to me?
There was a breakdown, Chairman, but I think she was, yes.
Okay, thank you. Right, welcome everybody. Thank you for the vote there. It's been a bit unfortunate as this, and I think we maybe need to talk about it a little bit in the confidential part of the meeting. We now go to the election of vice chairman. Do we have any nominations, please? Councillor Mann, please.
I'd like to nominate Ginny Parker.
Thank you. Do we have a second for Ginny Parker? Councillor Crawford, please. Seconding, yes, thank you. Do we have any more nominations for the deputy chairman? Yes, Councillor Ellis, please.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Harry Smith if he'd agree to be deputy.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Williamson, yes. Does Councillor Harry Smith accept the nomination?
Very grateful to accept the nomination, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Any other nominations? Okay, so we'll have a vote, please, Clerk. Can you lead it, please, for two nominations, Councillor Ginny Parker and Councillor Harry Smith. So can I give that over to you, please, Town Clerk?
I'll pass it back to Mrs. Smallacombe as she's got the roll call list there, if she could. Thank you, sir. Sorry, Mrs. Smallacombe, you're on mute.
Muted. You're muted.
You're
Okay.
Jan
Sorry, my unmute was not working. I was asking you to unmute me. Right, Councillor Mrs. Crawford.
Councillor Parker.
Councillor Ellis.
Councillor Smith.
Councillor Mrs. Ewings. Councillor Mrs. Ewings.
Councillor Parker.
Councillor Hutton.
Councillor Parker.
Councillor Mrs. Johnson.
Councillor Smith.
Councillor Mrs. Mann.
sorry, you're a little way away from the microphone, Mrs. Smallacombe.
Councillor Mrs. Mann.
Councillor Parker.
Councillor Mrs. Parker.
Councillor Parker.
Councillor Smith. Councillor Harry Smith.
Councillor Smith.
Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The vote is carried 5 votes to 4 in favour of Councillor Mrs. Parker.
Okay, thank you very much, Town Clerk. So Councillor Ginny Parker is the deputy. Thank you very much for that. Right, can we now carry on with the normal minutes? Apologies for absence, please. Town Clerk, do we have any apologies?
There are none, Chairman.
Thank you very much. For confirmation of minutes, does anybody have any thoughts or alterations, etc., to the minutes that you should all have seen? No, so I shall sign those at some appropriate time, Town Clerk. 5 declarations of interest. Of course, if you know any declarations of things that are coming up, please tell us now. If you don't declare now, if it becomes obvious during the meeting that there is something you should declare, then I'd expect you all to do so straight away, please. Are there any declarations at present? Councillor Mann, please.
I'm declaring an interest in Tavistock Locals Help, which is on the agenda as a organizer of that organization, but that is not a prejudicial because it's a community organization.
Thank you. I, of course, was also an organiser with Councillor Mann of Tavistock Locals Help, so I also must declare an interest. Any other interests that people want to declare? Okay, thank you. Right, items for recommendation to council. 6, emergency financial planning. Over to the town clerk, please. You have his report here.
Thank you, Chairman. The report very much follows the approach which we discussed in the informal finance workshop, which members undertook 2 or 3 weeks ago. There is some more general comment in terms of an update on the current situation. And in addition to that, you will see that the recommendations which were mooted at the informal session have been agreed. We have also set out in there the areas where it is challenging for us to receive support in the same way that either principal councils or the business community can. And I think
can I just interrupt? Somebody's got some background noise in. Can everybody mute, please? Because I'm certainly hearing some interference.
It's Councillor Parker.
I thought it was just me, but obviously other people are getting the feedback loop as well. It was making things quite difficult.
It seems to have gone.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think critically, the factor that we've identified there is the potential to make significant in-year savings. We will be bringing back further reports in the future with regard to what else we can do, but we would commend those savings to you together with the recommendations which are in the report, which will then go alongside future reports on budget setting to inform what we do both in year and for the next financial year, if agreeable to yourself and colleagues. And those are set out in paragraph 7 on page 3, Mr. Chairman. Happy to take any questions. Thank you. I think the chairman may be temporarily frozen. Can I hand over to you, Councillor Mrs. Parker, in the meantime? Oh no, he's back.
We're all having problems tonight. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened then. Have you finished, Town Clerk? Do we want to open it for discussion, or were you still talking?
Sorry, I finished, sir. I was just referring to the recommendations on page 3 and paragraph 7 of page 3. Beyond that, nothing to add. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Right. You've all seen the recommendations. Does anybody want any discussion or thoughts on this report before I go through the recommendations? Councillor Mann, please, and then Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I know that there was a one place where in the report it mentioned grant funding that may be available for certain things. And I wanted to ask if the council could identify those things that might be eligible for grant funding so that we could look at them as a council and put some time into grant applications if they are available.
Thank you, Chairman. The areas where there are potentially grants available are in relation to the Guildhall project, and applications have already been submitted to Pennon, both for audio visual equipment and in relation to assisting with the fit out of the visitor information centre. We have made application under the revised discretionary grant scheme to West Devon Borough Council. But that is going to be a relatively modest sum of money if successful. I think it would probably be in the order of 2% of our anticipated shortfall, possibly up to 4% on what current projections are. And in addition, we are making application to the National Lottery Heritage Fund to see whether or not, I mean, we were unsuccessful when we sought advice in relation to their coronavirus emergency fund, but we are seeking submitting an application in relation to a grant uplift, which we are working with our delivery partners on at the moment. Beyond that, we are not currently aware of any other grant monies which are potentially available or other sources, unlike in areas such as neighbouring Cornwall, where Cornwall Council has introduced a scheme which mirrors the government scheme for income, the replacement of lost income, an income support scheme for town and parish councils which are eligible there. That is not something which either Devon County Council or West Devon Borough Council consider themselves to be in a position to progress with. So that's the extent of the grant funding side of things that we face at the moment. We continue to be in negotiations with sector partners with a view to ensuring that if the worst were to come to the worst, which hopefully it doesn't, that there will be some support mechanism of last resort, but that wouldn't be in the form of a grant, that would be in the form of actually getting us to financial year end, should that be needed. But I think on the basis of the savings we're inviting you to consider tonight, and assuming that we do not have a major further retrenchment of COVID, then we should be on a course which will take us through to financial year end safely, if with some challenges along the way.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harry Smith, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to support the recommendations. The thing about other applications for other grants, I believe it's the end of this week that we are having a visit from representatives from Pennon to have a look at the situation. Hopefully we'll be successful in those applications. The point about that is that we will be handing over just finished rooms with no other work, and all the rest of the work with regard to the fit out will be applied for in the grant, or the cost of all the rest of the work. The other point I would like to make again is that at the other meeting, at the original meeting, I had some reservations about the items regarding staffing. I still have some concerns about that, but happy to support the recommendations going forward. And a general point that if we had not, as a council, taken some of the actions we have in the past, our financial situation, it does state in the report, may not, although we're still on a knife edge, we may well not have been balancing on that knife edge if we hadn't taken the actions we had as a council previously.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Crawford, please.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify in the footnotes on under number 26, it says discussions are taking place regarding availability of potential short-term safety nets. I wanted to know who this discussions were taking place with. Was that West Devon?
They're taking place with local authority partners.
Right, so not West Devon and not Devon County Council.
With partners in the local authority sector. I'm happy to have that conversation outside of this part of the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Right, if there's nothing else then, shall we, if we've all looked at the recommendations, shall I read these out and then we'll, for council to endorse them. So the recommendations are going to be: 1, the revenue savings outlined; 2, the deployment of the general reserve and the making available of the cemetery burial ground earmarked reserve to address the revenue position of the council; 3, that a further detailed review of actual as against projected income be undertaken early in Q3 as part of budget setting; and 4, the preparation of further reports to inform both continuing in-year review and the upcoming budget setting process. So is everybody in favour of sending that through to council? Can you please show? I think that's all the voting members, Town Clerk. Thank you very much. Right, minute 5. Minute 7. Website accessibility regulations. This is something that is new to a lot of us, and is something that I know some of the members of, particularly Sue Williamson, in the office has been doing a fantastic amount of work in recently, trying to sort this out for us. So over to the Town Clerk, please, and thank to everybody, particularly Sue Williamson, for the work she's done with this in quite a short period of time.
Thank you, Chairman, and I very much echo that. The website accessibility regulations come into effect on the 23rd of September. The report that you have before you from the Assistant to the Town Clerk sets out the work that has been done to date. We anticipate that in time for your council meeting, although it will be a report to follow. You will also have the accessibility statement and an improvement journey or route map, for lack of a better way of putting it, which shows how we will continue to make ourselves more accessible in those areas where we're not currently able to be compliant. A great deal of work has been undertaken to date on the website, but there is more to be done in order to get us to a level of higher compliance. And once we've actually got to that level, there is then the ongoing work to ensure that we are. The main impacts are around ensuring that for those with disabilities who require information in other formats, that they are able to access that, and also that people using different types of devices are. So what you will find is that there will be a change to the reporting format for council reports, for agendas, for minutes on the website itself. Where there are photographs, those photographs will have to be subtitled. We generally will avoid videos on the website, because if someone asks for that in an alternative format, then you can get into situations where transcriptions and things like that are required, and organisationally we don't have the resource to deliver that. But what we will try and do is to maintain as much of the current functionality as we can have, whilst ensuring that we comply with the new regulations going forward, and we will bring back reports to you as we make any significant changes along the way. So the next step will be at council to consider the accessibility statement and to consider the roadmap for improvement. If members are broadly comfortable with the thrust of this report, if they're happy to endorse that at this stage, that will provide us with a basis for the further discussion at council. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Town Clerk. Any thoughts, comments at this stage? No, in that case, can we just have the recommendation then that the committee endorse the approach currently being taken as detailed in next steps and recommend to council acceptance of the same? Those in favour, please, of taking that to council. I think that's everybody, Town Clerk. Thank you very much. 8. Drake statue. Consider the progress report, which is enclosed, prepared by the council's nominated representatives, and I think Councillor Mrs. Mann will tell us a little bit about this, please.
Right. There's 2 documents in there. I think hopefully everybody's read through those. We were asking for a couple of things as a result of what we found. So the recommendations were around whether or not we wanted to commission photos of the statue, including of the bas relief panels, that would allow the copyright to be going to the council of those items. I've actually got a quote now from the photographer for £200, basically, rather than 500, which I've put there. I think we talked about the idea that then you could also register them as public photos that you can use to represent the statue if it's going to be talked about in the press. And you could then get some income from them, hopefully, to offset that cost. So that was one question. We wanted to add a page to the website because the panel that we're preparing with Tavistock Heritage Trust is not going to be able to, in order to be interesting, it needs to have not everything about Francis Drake ever. But we'd like to put a fuller history on the town council's website. there may also be one on Tavistock Heritage Trust's website eventually, but they don't have a website currently. So that's why we've asked for the town council link. And we would like to do that with a QR code, so that would be able to be redirected. But I mean, the last bit is about having some language on the panel to basically make a historical fact about why we're erecting the panel, which is what it has to do with. And then the final recommendation is about the location, which we've discussed. And I think I said Mrs. Webb's Arboretum, but I think it's Mrs. Webb's Arboretum. I think I've misnamed it. So that's the basics. Does anybody have any questions about the survey or analysis or anything?
Councillor Crawford, please.
I'd just like to say that although I've been involved in this, Councillor Mann's done the bulk of the work and has pulled this together really nicely in this report. So thank you for doing that. That's brilliant.
Anybody else? Councillor Ellis, please.
Thank you. I'm looking at number 3 in the wording. I don't see why we need that wording. I don't know why we can't just go with a simple board saying a history of Sir Francis Drake. I don't know why we need to draw reference to incidents that have gone around, gone on in other parts of the country and the world. I really don't like that wording at all.
Okay, any comments on that, Councillor Mann? What the wording, and maybe Councillor Crawford will know, has the wording been definitely decided, or is this for further discussion? Shall Councillor Crawford answer, please?
I'm sorry, I don't think it's definitely been decided, but we do think it's important to actually make it clear why we've got this board. Otherwise it just stands alone and it doesn't necessarily make much sense. So it's important to acknowledge that and acknowledge that people were upset about it and did ask. Some people did ask for it removed. We've gone with the majority view, obviously. But we need to acknowledge that. It's important that we do that, we feel.
Okay, Councillor Ellis, do you want to reply?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, using SurveyMonkey's statistical analysis tool, I mean, this report is irrelevant because 165 people responded. For it to be statistically accurate, it needs to have 373 respondents from a population of 12,000. So that is how much the town is bothered by this. Also, in response to those that are actually bothered about the statue of Sir Francis Drake, there are 247 members of Black Lives Matter Tavistock. So, you know, at least half of them didn't even bother to answer the survey. If we want to make this accurate, let's just put a board up saying this is a history of Sir Francis Drake. We don't need to draw relevance to Bristol or a foreign country whatsoever.
Okay, any other thoughts on that, please? Councillor Williamson, do you wish to?
Yeah, I get where Councillor Ellis is coming from, and I'm inclined to agree to give credibility to groups who have no proper structure or protests that have emanated from other parts of the country is irrelevant to what actually the history of Francis Drake was and the panel's intent. So I would be supportive of that being altered. I don't know who the majority that Councillor Crawford is talking about. Is it the majority of the group that decided the wording of the report, or is it something else? I think it needs to go to full council to be kicked around and some other forms of words debated, not just one option, which is what we're being presented with at the moment. And I accept that maybe the work isn't done, but I think there is more work to do. And as far as statistical relevance, I'm not a statistician, but maybe that should be verified what Councillor Ellis has asserted. Maybe it is unrepresentative. I don't know. I'd love to know.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ewings, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Councillor Ellis. I do feel that actually, even give it 5 years, some people won't know what these incidents were in the United States and Bristol. I just think we maybe need to have the wording that it was to celebrate his achievements, but have it, you know, to acknowledge that he had been involved in the early days of slave trade, but also to have it mentioned that he was part of the ones in this country that tried to stop it as well. So, you know, there's two ways of looking at it. I think just having that statement is a very bold statement, and I don't feel that it aims to have any relevance as you walk past that corner of the road and you think, what on the earth is all that about? I think if you're going to have a board there, maybe have more information on it and include what you want to include, but actually that it's not quite as bold as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got lots of people waving at me. It's Councillor Crawford first, then Councillor Mann, and then Councillor Parker, please. Councillor Crawford first.
Sorry, this isn't the only statement. There is a lot of information about Drake on this panel. That is to go on it. This is just one additional statement, really, about the reason why we are putting this panel up by the statue. So we are explaining everything about Drake's history, as much as we can get on this panel, along with this statement, which explains why the panel is there.
Thank you. Councillor Mann, please.
Yeah, just to put some context around this, this is not work that's been done. It's not wording that we've agreed. There's no need to feel that this is a final statement. What we are talking about is this sort of footnote at the bottom of the sign about why and how the sign was erected, who erected it, and what purpose there was to erecting the sign. So the actual panel itself is a very big process that's being designed with Tavistock Heritage Trust, with historians. It's got lots of information. It certainly doesn't focus wholly on his involvement in the slave trade. It does include that information in order to round out the history of Sir Francis Drake. But it will have no focus that is specifically around that. And because it lacks that focus, in order to make sure that we were addressing the needs of the people that brought the issue to a head for the council, we felt that perhaps notifying that this is the reason why this sign has come out and the whole history of Drake is now going to be sitting on the roundabout. It was also, I think, because we've been sort of steeped in talking about how in the world we got a statue like that in the first place, the history of the erection of the statue, that we're quite interested in documenting our historical footnote of what we are doing now as a council and why we're doing it. Because essentially that's going to be part of the record anyway. But the wording itself, how it's worded, whether it says anything about incidents or not, it doesn't have to. That's not agreed, and I'm certainly bringing it here to the committee, and that's what we wanted to do, was to bring that to conversation. So perhaps instead of having it as a recommendation to saying, you know, and it is, I did suggest it as language similar to the following, not this language. Perhaps what we need to do is have some other suggestions for how we credit the council's involvement and the creation of this panel, if that makes sense, in order to, you know, identify its historical part in the statue. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you. So, so I mean, that does make sense. Rather than have those specific words, we put something else in. Councillor Ginny Parker wishes to speak, and then Councillor Ewing wants to speak.
Yes, simply to say that in the process of our research and listening to other people and investigating the whole issue of the statue, of course, it brings home that the statue was in itself put up 300 years after Drake was around. And by putting something on the interpretation board, just to acknowledge why at this point in time, because all an interpretation board does, or a statute does, is capture a point in time. The Victorians were very keen on Drake for a number of reasons. And we were just trying to capture why we suddenly in 2020 needed to put an interpretation board on. So yes, I follow up what Ursula says. You know, obviously the words aren't agreed. This was a suggestion, and there are other suggestions, other ways of acknowledging why suddenly in 2020 we wanted to put an interpretation board up.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ewings, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I might be being a bit thick here, so apologise, ladies, that I might be. So the interpretation boards are around the foot of the statue, and there's going to be one other board. Right, there we go. See, I am being a numpty. I'm just thinking of all these car drivers trying to go around that roundabout.
What's difficult about this is that we don't have a final agreement on the panel, its location, or what's going to be on the panel. So it's very difficult to tell you exactly where that is. But it's definitely not going to be at the statue's foot, because that would entail people having to run across the roundabout and get run over on their way to find out this vital information. So what we're looking at, and recommendation number 4 is approving the location of the panel on council property at Mrs. Wedd's Arboretum. So if you look at the pictures in the reports, I've taken a picture from the location that I'm proposing that the sign would go, which is near the other road signs on the roundabout. So it would just be further along from the last sort of Devon sign there. Tavistock Heritage Trust is working with Simon Crosby, who is going to help take it through the planning process. So it has to go through planning approval. It's in the conservation area, so Graham Lawrence will need to be involved. There's a lot of pieces before the panel can be erected, essentially. And that process is going to take at least 8 weeks. The panel is sort of, at this point, we're talking about 6 foot by 3 foot, with photography of the panels, the bas relief panels that are on the statue, because obviously no one can see those currently because you can't approach the statue very easily. So that's hence the recommendation for the photography, as well as the history of the erection of the statue in the first place by the people of Tavistock, and how it was paid for, why it was erected, when it was erected, as well as the whole history sort of Drake, along with this link to a fuller history, and including both the bad and the good, essentially. So including his participation in the slave trade when he was working with his relatives, and also talking about all of his other accomplishments subsequent to that. So there's not going to be, it's not a sign solely about rectifying information and just adding, oh, and by the way, he was a slave trader. It's about putting all of that in context, which was what the survey really told us, is that people really wanted to know the full context of his history, and not to erase his history and replace it with only one part of his history. So it's a lot of information, and that is being worked on by the Heritage Trust. This is why, you know, I'm not an expert in any of this history. So we have been taking all the expert advice we can on that. But what we need from the council is the agreement to put the sign in that location because it's council property. And we need agreement that we put something on the sign to notify people that we've put this up and why we've put it up. That language totally is open to how you would like to say that. And I think we can probably find a way to fund the pictures elsewhere. But if we do, then the council doesn't retain the copyright of the pictures. So I felt that we have a grade 2 listed statue that is important to our community, and it was worth us having a good commissioned set of photographs that we could use on our website or any other place that we need to describe the statue. So that's why I've asked for the funds for that, so that we could have that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Johnson and Councillor Smith, I assume are still there. Do they want to say anything?
No, thank you. I've turned off my video because my connection is so poor and it's helping me to hear better.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harry Smith?
Oh, thank you. I'm also having problems with this connection.
Right. It's obviously a bad night for us all tonight. Councillor Ginny Parker, please.
I'd just like to say that we did we chose those words in item 3 from a collection of words, and I'd like to suggest that maybe we put forward the other choices so that full council can choose.
Okay, can we, yes, can we go to the town clerk, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I just thought it might be helpful to recap the position here. The council, when it agreed to ask Tavistock Heritage Trust to undertake this piece of work, it effectively delegated to the trust the work associated with it. The trust itself will, to a certain extent, be bound by the agreement that it has with, I think it's Historic England, who are providing the funding and the arrangements for this. They're working, as has already been pointed out, with local historians, as well as with community groups. So from a practical perspective, whilst the council can quite appropriately express a view as to how it would like the interpretation board to be framed, I think it's important to remember it's not a council interpretation board. The 3 members that we have appointed are members to coordinate, collaborate with and assist Tavistock Heritage Trust, but that is their role, and therefore it's not necessarily for the council to actually be able to comment on the detail of content, but it is quite appropriate for the council to feed back how it would like that content to be configured, if at all possible. But it's just bearing in mind that it is for the trust to determine through its stakeholder work what the appropriate format and approach from this is in relation to the decision the council's already made to delegate to them the ability to take this forward, sir.
Okay, thank you. Can we can vote on this? Can I just suggest, because obviously it's for more discussion, but if we removed number 3 and said something along some approval of some wording on the panel to say why the interpretive boards were made in 2020, would that be a way of moving it forward? Would that help, James, do you think, and not actually put at this stage any individual words? Councillor Ellis, please.
I mean, I personally wouldn't approve any reference to incidents that have happened around the world and in this country. I'm looking at 165 respondents to a survey from a population of over 12,000. I'm actually questioning the relevance of the board, the purpose of the board, because it seems like the vast majority of the town is not interested in it. And I'm actually questioning, as a council, are we going to have to maintain this? Is the cost going to cost the town? Because the town is not interested in this.
Okay. How do we want to take it forward? Do we want to vote on 1, 2 and 4 and then 3? Any thoughts? Councillor Ewings, please.
I didn't hear what Councillor Ellis said. I think being up near the mayor living, it's not very good up here tonight. So is he able to repeat, please?
Can you repeat, please, James?
Yes, Mandy. Basically, what I'm saying is I wouldn't approve number 3 in any guise. And with 165 responses to a survey, I'm actually questioning the relevance of this board in our town. From a population of 12,000, over 12,000, then the majority of the town clearly isn't interested in a board or having anything to do with the board. And I'm questioning whether this is going to, in the future, cost the council money to maintain. and if that is a relevant thing to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis.
Right. I mean, these are recommendations for council, aren't we? Does we want to sort of move it forward if we can. Councillor Mann, please. Do you want a final word, and what do you propose we do?
Yeah, just to respond to Councillor Ellis's comment, the board and all of that has already been approved by council. We've already commissioned this work. So whether it's relevant or not, based on the survey, that survey was done after that decision was already taken by council. Therefore, it's not really relevant whether or not 165 people, 370 people, or 2,000 people had responded, because the council had already made that decision. So from that perspective, we have to move on with the board. We've already commissioned it. We've gotten a grant with the help of Tavistock Heritage Trust, who has included that in the panel. We're working to make that panel as interesting as possible, not just for people who live in the town, but for people who visit. This is a national media item that has generated interest across the news multiple times in the last 6 months. So it's not just the 12,000 people that live here locally that will benefit from having that panel. Yes, I assume there will be some costs, and I'm sure that the general manager could probably let us know what kind of costs are involved in maintaining signage on town council property. So perhaps Councillor Ellis can direct his question to the general manager for that. I suggest that we remove the language that's the suggested language. So, and just say, approve the logos for the Town Council, Historic England, and Tavistock Heritage Trust that are going to go on the sign, because that's really important. And I like the suggestion of bringing this to full council as design a statement of some sort to acknowledge the council's role in delivering this panel.
Okay. Does people approve of that as number 3? Councillor Ewings, please.
Sorry, that was approval.
Right. Right, okay, so then the things that we're going to do then are, we send this to council. 1, commissioning a set of high definition photos of the statue, including the 3 unique bas relief panels for which the council retains copyright, which can be used in electronic and print media, with query £200 now. 2, adding a separate page to the council website for the full history of the erection of the statue and Sir Francis Drake. 3, approving logos for the Town Council, Historic England, and Tavistock Heritage Trust, with some wording about the panel and why it's there. And 4, approving the location of the panel on council property at Mr. and Mrs. Webb's Arboretum, behind the wall on the northeast pavement near the Drake roundabout. And this is basically to send forward to council for council to discuss. So are those, everybody in favour, please?
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favour, sir.
Do we know about Councillor Harry Smith?
I can still hear you, but I'm just trying to reload some software to get my camera up again.
Right. Are you in favour of this, of that going to council, Harry?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you. Anybody against? And anybody abstaining? Councillor Ewings and Councillor Ellis. Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Williamson, sorry. Right, items circulated for information only. 9, capital projects. This is the General Manager, please.
I've got nothing additional to add to my report that was circulated last night, and the appendices that were circulated before, which relate to the project programmes.
Thank you. Any comments to the General Manager? Councillor Ewings, please.
I thought it was all brilliant. Thank you, Mr. Southall. I thought it was really good. And to be able to read the external work programmes and the percentages, when normally we need the best magnifying glass on the market, is absolutely just a joy. But it's great to see how much work is coming along, and it's as if now they've got over some of the COVID issues, that the whole project is really just coming together at the moment, and there is definitely an end in sight. And to know that this month the scaffolding is going to be coming down front and back will just be Tavistock. It will just make so much difference for people to know that it's getting there. So I thought it was a great report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Completely agree. It does seem as though it's finally all happening, which is wonderful. Any other comments to the General Manager? No? Well, thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Crawford, please.
Sorry, I just wanted to say as well, the appendices, which showed what been complete and where it was particularly good, I felt. It was really easy to read and really clear. So thank you very much for that. It's brilliant.
Okay, so thank you very much, General Manager. 10, winding up of Tavistock Locals Help. This is Ursula Mann is going to talk about this, please.
Right. Tavistock Locals Help ended on the 28th of August with our service to general public, and we've ended our phone line, which the Town Council sponsored with a grant. The final expenses for that have gone through today. And I just think it's been amazing to see what's happened over the last 5 months. Basically, Tavistock Locals Help actually took more than 1,600 requests. We served at least 472 individuals in the local area during lockdown. Phone volunteers took more than 1,500 phone calls, sometimes up to 25 per shift.
Ursula, you've gone quiet. I think Ursula's vanished. No, I think I've vanished.
She's just reconnecting, Chairman.
Right. I mean, I can finish off this by saying that basically what we decided, what some of the organisers decided to do as a sort of legacy of the help and sort of to commemorate in a way, is to form what we've called Tavistock Locals Help Trust, which is basically a charity that we've now formed for Tavistock to help people in financial hardship, unexpected financial hardship due to COVID. We're basically launching it this week. We're hoping there'll be a decent bit of press coverage this week. We will be applying to the council for grants as we're applying for other people, and we're hoping to get something that initially for COVID, people having problems with COVID, if unemployment happens or people have difficulty accessing work placements or money for going on training courses, but long term, who knows? But it's something we hope that's going to be good that comes out of this pandemic for the whole of Tavistock. And it's very much a trust for the people of Tavistock, and we're hoping the people of Tavistock will support it. Is Ursula back online now?
I am. I think I've had to phone in. My microphone has stopped working today, so that's why I've been on the phone the whole time. We're all having a bit of a hard one. Yeah. So I assume that you finished off where I left off, essentially.
So that's basically it. So it's just for information, everybody, okay? So it's been a great success for Tavistock. Right, urgent items. I have no urgent items to bring forward. So we're now then going to go into part 2, which means that we end the live streaming now, Town Clerk. And if everybody in a few minutes, sorry, Councillor Crawford wants to say something. Leslie, can you unmute yourself, please?
Sorry, I just wanted to check we've got the sign-in details for part 2. I didn't remember seeing that, but because I took those. But are they there?
It's the second bit on the same email.
Right, it is there. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So can we see everybody on the other side in 3 or 4 minutes? Okay.
No, I don't know the sign-in for the second part of the meeting.
You don't know how to?
I haven't got the email. I got the sign in from the mayor on the password, and I took the meeting number off the agenda. So therefore I don't have the second part. I've got the second part. I just need the code.
I'll send Councillor Williams. I'll
Thank
send you the
you,
details.
thank you, Mayor. That's kind of you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Bye.
Everybody else all right? See you on the other side. Okay.